Lego. 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 Lego.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Brick. This is the podcast where we get to talk with fellow AFOLs from around the world who love to design their own creations, and we get to talk about the breaking news every Fridays to catch up on all the things that you've missed in Lego. Today we get the opportunity to talk to Sci-Fi Christopher, the creator of Sci-Fi, about his awesome creations. First, I'd just like to say, hey Chris, thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Thank you for having me, Garrett. I'm excited to be here.
Great. I'm excited to definitely get down and talk about your awesome sci-fi builds here. First, for our listeners, could you just give them a little insight, tell us where you're from, what you like to build?
I'm from Melbourne in Australia, down under. I've been building since I was a teenager, so for about 10 years. I am obsessed with science fiction, so I started building Stargate spaceships and then delved into Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. And recently I've started making some one-to-one props from the Marvel and DC cinematic universes, which I've really enjoyed, and they're huge, so that's really fun. Be able to play with those. And I also like to build prop replicas of swords. So one of those is the Underreal sword from the Lord of the Rings.
Awesome. Definitely some cool range of, sci-fi and fantasy stuff that I know a lot of people are very interested in, especially in the culture we have today with all our, Marvel movies and sci-fi just becoming much bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Sci-fi used to be something that made you the odd one out, but now being a geek is the cool thing, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've felt that most of my life, and definitely with Lego, it kind of adds that extra dimension of geek and nerdness.
It does, but it's so popular now. Everyone's building the people you least expect.
Oh yeah, and that's cool because then you get to learn like, hey, I'm not the only one out there, which is fun. I mean, we have this huge Lego community, but then you see people that you'd never expect.
Exactly. I think the Lego community is bigger than anyone realizes.
Yeah, just like with anyone, we all start somewhere. Where did you start with building with Lego?
I started, I am a really big fan of Stargate. When I was a teenager, I wanted a model of one of the Stargate ships. And I thought, how am I going to put this together? And I had a tub of Lego. So that's where I started. And then I didn't stop. And that was the USS Daedalus, which is still one of my favorite builds. I rebuilt it about 4 times since then. And the newest version sits up on my shelf right behind me. Yeah, that's where it started. And it just went from there. And now I just can't stop building.
Now, what drew you to Stargate? Because I mean, for people who are Stargate fans, that's like one of the ultimate nerd things because not a lot of people watch that.
Stargate, I think it's just a fun adventure sci-fi show. My parents got me into it, and I just loved it about as much as I loved Star Trek growing up. And you'd be surprised. Stargate, it's like Lego. You don't realize how many people absolutely love Stargate. And my Stargate builds are way more popular than my Marvel and DC builds, which really surprised me. Yeah, no, it's just a great show. I watch it over and over.
Yeah, I started watching Stargate when I was in high school. I think I was ninth or 10th grade.
Yeah.
And I watched all of SG1, all 10 seasons, like just every time I come home from school, just start it up and start watching.
Yeah.
It is a great show. I think that is also my favorite ship, the USS Daedalus. It's just such a cool ship based on, it actually looks like something that we could make in the next 200 years or something.
It really does. The design aesthetic is so similar to the Navy ships that we have now, which I think is really cool because you look at that and you know this is a Earth ship, this is a human ship. The designers did an incredible job on the Daedalus. It's one of my favorites out of all sci-fi.
Yeah, it's fun because it does like add the human aspect to it more so than like, oh, which we'll talk about, of course, is Star Trek is that's looks like something maybe, I don't know, like 400 to 500 years from now instead. This is like the beginning stages.
Exactly. It's I humanity's first flight into space and space exploration.
Yeah. So you said that was your favorite ship, so you started designing it. How did you go
Yeah.
about like doing that? Is that your first time you've ever built something of your own design?
Yeah, so that was my first mock. I didn't have a lot of pictures. I wasn't very experienced. So I went from the image of my ship of the ship in my head. So it wasn't too accurate and it was just built brick on brick without any special techniques. And then I built a couple more versions which were like that and more accurate. And then the newest version, which is probably 5 or 6 years old now, I actually built using a schematic from the Stargate magazine, which is a bit of a throwback, but it was a perfect schematic. I used that to get the specs exactly right. And then I realized how much I was obsessed with details. And that's what started a new way of building for me, where instead of just building something that was recognizable as the ship, I wanted something that was an absolute perfect replica down to the finest details. I think the Daedalus sort of shows my building journey from a ship that was sort of recognizable as the Daedalus to where I've started trying some new techniques and really putting all the details into it.
Yeah, that's cool because like you said, progression. You kind of built it just from the start, but then you took it on to the details, which Stargate Magazine, I do not remember that, but it's pretty funny because that'll show you that's probably came out in what, the 90s, like late 90s in that case.
Um, it was during Atlantis, so I think it would have been 2003 or 2004.
Yeah, yeah.
Still a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we have only had two spin-offs.
Yeah,
Atlantis and then
Atlantis and
Universe.
Universe. Yeah.
Now, did you have you talked about the ships that you like, but did you have a favorite of the Stargate TV shows?
I think Atlantis is my favorite. I actually started with Atlantis. I was watching it pretty much as it came out, and then I watched Universe, and then I went back and I watched all of SG1. Yeah, Atlantis will be that show that I grew up with always.
That was a good one. I got it hooked on it because of my friend's dad, who was also a big nerd, and he loaned me like his box set of SG1. That's how I watched it all. And then
Yeah,
I realized like, oh, there's other shows. I'll just continue to watch that because I don't know if they still play on the Sci-Fi channel. It's been a long time since I've seen an episode on TV.
yeah, it's been a very long time. Luckily, it's all streaming at the moment, so it's so accessible. It was so hard to get hold of it when it first came out, but now it's always streaming on something.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, isn't everything now?
Yeah, that's very true. Everything, yeah.
I mean, you started with Stargate. What was your next adventure in building?
After Stargate, I started moving into, I'm trying to remember exactly what was next. I started some Star Trek ships. I think my next big build was the Enterprise NX-01. So I did two versions of that as well. The second version I've had built for quite some time. So yeah, that was my first big Star Trek ship. I did the Andromeda. I don't know if you know Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. It was a show that's a little less popular, but I was obsessed with it, so I built the Andromeda. The next huge build was Pegasus from Battlestar Galactica.
So Andromeda, which one was that? I mean, was it based on the Andromeda strain? I don't remember if there was a ship from that.
No, there was a ship that was frozen in time 300 years in a black hole. And then when the ship came out with its captain, civilization had fallen after a great big war, so he decided to rebuild it. But the ship was so cool. An incredible design, very complicated design. Um, but yeah, it was such a cool ship, the Andromeda Ascendant.
I'll have to check it out. I guess I must have missed
Yeah,
this show.
yeah. It's got some good episodes and some bad episodes, but it's got a cool ship. I can tell you that.
That usually helps out.
Exactly. Yeah.
You said you moved on to Star Trek. Did you get into that around the same time, since you were kind of hooked on Stargate, just watching and building?
Yeah. Yeah. As a kid, I grew up with Star Trek, Stargate, and the classic Battlestar Galactica. When I was young, my parents didn't think I was ready for the new Battlestar, so we started on the original. So that's what I grew up with. It's always been those three shooters for my Lego building. And of course, the Enterprise is my favorite ship. So that's always been what's helped me decide what I'm going to build.
Yeah, the Enterprise has been around for a good while, so a lot of people love that ship.
Yeah, absolutely. The original Enterprise has so many different versions now that I decided when I saw the new version in Star Trek Discovery, I thought this is absolutely my favorite version. They changed the ship, but it looks so cool. And that's when I knew it was finally time to build the classic Enterprise out of Lego.
I can't remember how they didn't change it too much, did they? I can't remember from because they did the Discovery and then the appearance of the Enterprise was seen season 2, right? Or was it early season
Yeah.
1?
I think it was the last episode of season one. I think it was the cliffhanger at the end. I could be wrong, but I think that's what happened. And no, they didn't change it too much. They were very clever. It was some good changes to the design to make it a little bit more modern.
I mean, do you like to do it to scale compared to other ships, or do you like to just build until you have the detail that you like?
I'm more focused on the detail than the scale.
Okay.
None of my Star Trek ships are to scale with each other, but it's just a focus on the detail. My Galactica is my most detailed build, and I rebuilt parts of it 4 or 5 times, and I got to the point where it was nearly finished, and then I pulled apart the whole thing because it was just two studs too wide, and I stuffed up the proportions. I wanted it to be perfect. But with the Galactica, I want to build the Colonial Fleet, and that's when I decided I would do it to approximate scale. But I'm
Mhm.
making the other ships, a little bit bigger, so I get to have some more fun with the details, and I think it'll look a little bit better when it's on display.
Because yeah, I saw you've done the Colonial one, and then you did
Yep,
Battlestar Galactica, and you said
yep.
you've been working on Pegasus now, or you said you
I
did
did.
build Pegasus.
Yeah, I did Pegasus while I was a teenager actually, but I want to rebuild it, and that will be to scale with Galactica, so it'll be huge.
Awesome, yeah, because I'm like those are the most. I mean, the most iconic parts of it. Are you
Yeah.
kind of building them based on the original series, or are you looking at them from the revamp from what was that, 2004, 2006?
Yeah, from the 2004 version. So my fleet will be from the revamp, not the original series.
Okay.
Um, though interestingly, a few ships in the fleet, including the one I'm working on now, which is the Colonial Movers, are almost identical between the two series. So yeah, the Colonial Movers will be very similar design.
Cool. I've always considered doing it. So I built a miniature scale Galactica because I was going to do the
Oh, cool.
Adama maneuver, like put some of the flames on the bottom, which I thought would be cool.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I just always that's one of the best scenes. I mean,
Yeah,
I you could rewatch it and just still get like chills when you see. I always liked the actor who played Adama. I thought he was perfect for the role.
yeah.
Yeah, the Colonial Fleet. I mean, how many ships is that again? I mean, that's what maybe. I think it doesn't. It say it says how many citizens are left or humans are
Yeah.
left, but I can't remember how many ships.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the exact number either, but I won't build the whole fleet. I'll build probably between 10 and 20, including the more iconic ones. But yeah, I'm being realistic and thinking I probably won't have the patience for the whole fleet. So I'll build 10 to 20 ships.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's still a good bit of ships.
Yeah, it should look really cool. We have an annual event, which unfortunately was cancelled last year, but it'll hopefully be on in January, called Brickvention. So I'm hoping to do a big display of the Galactica and the Pegasus with the Colonial Fleet. I think that'll look really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So I was gonna say, I've seen pictures on your Instagram of, all of your models set up. Do
Yeah.
you keep everything built and then do you take them to just that show or any other shows in Australia?
I keep most of it built. I did dismantle the Discovery recently because I needed parts. Brickvention is the main show that I take my builds to. But I also, and again, unfortunately, it's been cancelled because of COVID, display at Comic Con in Melbourne. But they're the two shows I display at. They're both fantastic events. So much fun.
I didn't know you could display it at Comic Con. Is it usually a good crowd of Lego people that bring their builds?
Yeah, it is. They normally approach the local Lego user group. So I display with the rest of the Lego user group. It's so good because it's the right crowd of attendees. They're not
Hmm.
always Lego fans, but they're always sci-fi fans.
So they appreciate all these builds.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
my best experiences at Comic Con was I built the Soul Sword from Shadowhunters, and at that Comic Con, one of the actors from Shadowhunters, Dominic Sherwood, was there, and I actually got him to take a picture with my Lego Soul Sword, and he was so excited when he got to see the Lego replica as well. So that was really fun.
That's cool. It's always fun to like have people just not just regular people, but the actors appreciate like, oh yeah, I mean I love this sword or whatever prop that they can physically see that you took the time because you appreciated the show to rebuild in Lego.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such a good experience. I think just to see people loving my creations, to see that wonder and that joy when they see the Lego replica of something they like, whoever it is.
Exactly. And then they might get inspired to build something themselves, especially with some of these shows that not everyone's watched or a lot of people have, such as Discovery's been really popular or your Marvel
Yeah,
builds.
exactly. I think I really liked doing the Marvel builds because I know a lot of people, there's not a lot of Lego replicas of those props out there. So I hope that, it shows that you can build anything
Yeah.
if you want, if you put your mind to it.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say there's so many ships too that like if they didn't see you build it yet, then they can take a crack at trying to build. Like I was thinking of like a puddle jumper from Stargate, or I mean Star Trek has hundreds of ships if they liked any of the other ones, like from Deep Space
Exactly.
Nine, Voyager, all those.
Yeah, there's so many great ships, and I've got a list of probably 50 things I want to build. The puddle jumper, I I would love to build a puddle jumper, and I'd also love to build Atlantis to a really big
Large
scale
scale.
one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of on my dream bucket list when I have the parts.
Yeah. That usually is a little bit of a hindrance. Do you ever build digitally or is it only with real brick?
I sometimes build digitally, mainly for the purpose of generating instructions. Um, but to be honest, I don't enjoy building digitally, and I build because I love it. It's my hobby, so I find it really hard to get my head around designing a digital mock because yeah, it's just not something that I enjoy in the same way, and I find it a lot more
Hmm.
challenging on the computer, and it's so hard to replicate some of those difficult techniques in the LCAD software. So generally, it is just real life builds.
Like in that case, it must be hard to, have all the pieces, but then I'm guessing it takes a good bit of time to get that design just right because maybe you want a piece to fit here, but you don't own it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge with building is actually making do when you don't have the piece you need. I've started to build up quite a big collection of spare parts, but Bricklink is my friend. And if I'm working on a model, I will be ordering, doing a lot of small Bricklink orders for that one piece that I need. And sometimes I just have to sit back and wait patiently for it to arrive, hopefully within a week. But luckily, even throughout COVID and lockdowns, the post has still been running very fast. So I don't have to wait too long.
That's good. Yeah, I like Bricklink. It's just a little expensive at times when you're like, "Oh, I need
Yeah,
just this piece." And you're like, "That's
yeah,
$4 a piece." I'm like, "Ah, dang it."
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some pieces are cheap, others not so much, and it certainly adds up when I do a lot of orders. I think I think I did like 10 or 15 in one week, and then I was shocked at how much it all added. But it was worth it with the builds I got to put together at the end. My rule is I design it in my head, the challenging parts of the build. So I don't start something until I know, okay, I think I've got a way that I'm going to put together that one part that's going to be a pain. And then as I start building, I realize more what pieces I need, or that I didn't order enough of a certain piece, which seems to always happen.
Yes, it does, because then you're like, oh, I'm ready, and never mind. I don't have
Yep.
that piece, or I have to change the design because it didn't work as I thought it would.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I generally work on um, 4 or 5 builds at the same time. So I've always got another build to jump on.
Now, you also did some weaponry, not just the sci-fi, but more the fantasy style at Marvel and Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
What drew you to do some of these large scale ones? Because that's a whole different kind of building.
Yeah. I think what really drew me to it was I thought this is going to look really cool to have a massive one-to-one scale prop. Um, and I think that's really what drew me to it. I love everything I build is because I love it in the show. So I thought the Stormbreaker axe and the Loki scepter look so cool in the show, and they're so big, and it really has that wow factor. So I thought if I can produce this out of Lego, it's going to stand out, and it's so much fun to like take photos posing with the props. Like the Aquaman trident in the end was probably 40 centimeters high, or 30 centimeters higher than my head. So it's just so much fun to like look at that and go, oh my God, I built something this big to this scale.
But then I think the challenge is, at least from my perspective, the trident, it's so long, just in length. How
Yeah.
do you keep it the strength up? Like, have you interlocked long pieces, or are you trying to use smaller? I guess that's just my challenge I'd see.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a challenge, especially the trident because the handle is so thin. I ended up interlocking plates to get, I guess, a base through the middle, and then I managed to get it strong enough just by stacking the slope bricks and the tiles on top of that. It does bend a little bit, but it definitely doesn't break. Of course, the base was a really big challenge to get that to stay on. It's a bit weaker than I'd like, but it holds up when I hold it in the air, so that's what matters.
I would say that just being able to hold it without breaking probably is a good start to just having the design. And do you ever go back
Yeah.
and fix things to be more stable, or correct designs that you're like, actually, I could do that better?
Yeah, I absolutely do. The one I did recently was the Underreal sword. I actually went back and completely rebuilt it because I thought I can make this a lot more accurate, and I'm really happy with the new design for it. So I definitely sometimes I'm just sitting there watching TV or playing on my phone, and I'll look at a build and think, oh, I could change this. I could add that piece there, or I've got that new piece that I didn't have before, and that'll look really cool. So I'm always playing with my builds and changing things here and there.
Nice. And I see you've done Loki scepter with. How'd you find all these gold pieces? Because that's gold is not the easiest Lego piece to find anymore.
No, it's a really difficult color, the pearl gold. I ended up ordering them through Bricklink. They're a lot more expensive than I would have liked, but it is what it is. And I actually use tan pieces for the base. And if you look closely at it, you'll see that there are quite a lot of tan pieces that you can see from the outside, but it is still quite a similar color to the pearl gold, so it blends in. But the scepter was one of the hardest builds I've done just because it was so hard to support the blade with the handle without it actually snapping off.
And I'd say just the curves in itself, because it's not a straight handle. It curves at the bottom, curves at the top. Then you have to
Yeah.
put the stone in the middle there and still have it balanced.
Yeah, those curves were certainly a very big challenge, especially where the gold blended into the blade. That was the
Hmm.
hardest part to get just right. And it was certainly working out, do I do this with plates or do I do it with slope pieces and bricks? But I decided to go for plates in the end.
Yeah, very cool. It's a good challenge, especially for anyone out there
Yeah,
that likes those designs or those props. They could look at you and see, oh yeah, you can build them. It's not
yeah,
super stable, but it's stable enough to use.
exactly. I think until you start building it, you don't realize what you can make. It's all just breaking it down to one step at a time, one tiny bit of the build, and then just working your way through.
Yeah.
And then you get there in the end, and it all comes together, and it's the best feeling when all the hard work pays off and it's a
Yeah.
finished model.
Oh yeah. Do you have a favorite of any of your models that you've done other than the well, I'd say the Deadlist, but I'm not sure. I'm just any of the newer ones.
No, you're definitely right. It's the Daedalus that I'd say is my favorite. And out of the props, oh, it's hard to say. I do like the Stormbreaker axe though, just because the handle is so thick and strong. I can actually really play around with it and wield it.
Having some ability to move and use what you've built makes you feel like Thor in that case.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything you're working on now that you're really excited about?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm working on a few Star Trek ships. So I dismantled my big discovery. I was never quite happy with it, and it was using so many pieces. And now, with those pieces, I'm working on the Titan, Captain Riker's ship from Lower Decks, which I've wanted to build for so long. So that I'm really excited about. I'm also building Captain Riker's other ship, the Zheng He from Star Trek Picard, which is a really cool
Mhm.
new design. Finally, the Discovery A. So it's a much smaller scale. Um, really fun, big pieces spaceship. So I'm really excited about all three of those ships at the moment, and I'm making good progress on them. So I'm very excited for the finished result.
And are they large builds, or are we talking like similar size to the Daedalus, or more like the Discovery size?
Similar size to the Daedalus. Yeah.
Okay.
So not quite as big as the Discovery. Um, I think my next build that will be the same sort of size as the Discovery will be Pegasus, but I will certainly have to order a lot more grey pieces for that.
Yeah. That'll take a little bit of time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Pegasus will be too challenging a design. I think Galactic is a bit more complicated. I won't know till I start building. I'm
Yeah.
probably just being optimistic.
Yeah. And then you'll come to it and you're like, I should have never said that.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, it always gets harder when you start building, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah. As we wind down for our interview today, I just want to first
Yeah.
say thank you again for coming on. This is awesome. I love talking about sci-fi stuff, and then in Lego just makes it, well, even better because then you get to put my two passions at least together and you get to see that other people do too.
Yeah.
I think that the designs are also great, and I always ask this at the end because I think it's a great, window into all the designers. How do you think that Lego has changed or affected your life?
Um, I think Lego, it's really given me a hobby. It's given me that thing that makes me me, that thing that I'm passionate about, that I love doing, that if I've had a long day and I want to relax, I'll build a Lego set. If I'm feeling creative, I'll work on one of my own mocks. It's how I connect with the community and connect with people all over the world. My apartment's covered in Lego. I think and I've met so many cool people in the Lego community, and I have so much fun at events like Brick mentioned. So yeah, I don't really know what my life would be like without Lego.
Yeah, it's great to like have that. It's not just a hobby, but now you've kind of made it a little bit of your lifestyle, and you get to enjoy,
Yeah,
like you said, your sci-fis that you've always loved in another way that you can enjoy the ships in real life. Not full scale, of course, but in a
yeah,
scale that is manageable to display and show off that, hey, I'm proud of these and of the shows that I like.
Exactly. And it's such a great way to connect with the shows that I like, especially shows like Star Trek, which are really inspirational, heartwarming TV shows. And to say, well, this is how I connect with that, and inspire other fans. So I really like that. And it's a way, I think Lego and the way it started for me is it's a way to say, I want this to be real. How can I make that? Oh, I'll make it with Lego.
Hmm.
Because you can build anything. Um, if I need a shelf, I'll build it with Lego. If I need to fix something, I'll just put something together with Lego. Like, there's so much you can do with it.
Oh yeah, it's very versatile, and like you said, you get to show off what you like, and you get to kind of fix things, do what you need to, because
Yeah,
the interchangeability of it all.
exactly right. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you again for, coming on today. I really appreciated you talking about your designs. I definitely want to push these to all the other people. Go check out Sci-Fi Bricks. That's SCIFIBRIKS. I'll post the link in the description as well as to your website, which you even get into, your design process on your blog, which is awesome, so that people can even dive a little deeper than what we could cover today.
Yeah, definitely have a look at my website and have a look at my YouTube videos where I talk about all of my builds and how I put them together and give a few tips to do your own builds. And I also give lots of more detailed tours of my mocks as well, so you can really see all the details. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's been really fun.
Well, no, thank you again. Everyone, please go check it out. The YouTube channel is really cool. Definitely get some tips because, every designer has a different way of doing something, so you can definitely learn from Chris here in the sci-fi realm. So Chris, hope to talk to you again soon and keep building.
Thank you very much.
So everyone out there, please make sure to go to his Instagram, YouTube, and the website so you can get a better detailing of all the things. He does have some instructions that you can build some of these. He's got Atlantis from Stargate. He's got miniature scale, the Deadlist, as well as the full scale. So definitely fun. You can support him and go follow him. You can also support us here at the podcast, Back to Brick 2, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can get up-to-date information every Friday and get to hear us talk with fellow designers from around the world. I thank you again for always listening, and I'll leave you, as I always do. Get creative, get out there, and go build something.